Andrew Catalon, who'll be on the call for CBS, joins us at 6:15. But right now, it's our pleasure to welcome back to the show. I played over a decade in the league. It's Kedric Golston. Ked, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, Craig. And yourself?
I am doing well. I am doing very well. It's a very exciting time, obviously, to be talking about Washington football. And I assume it's an exciting time to be an alum. There's going to be over 175 alums back in town this weekend. I know our guy Zoe's coming back. I'm sure you'll see him. And I'm just curious for you, before we dive into the actual football, since that fateful day, July 20th, when Josh Harris bought the team, what's been your experience as an alum, especially in the area, compared to what it was previously? And, how has it lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, well, I think, the whole DMV area is excited. You saw people like Riggins back in the building, Champ Bailey. A lot of people didn't really – Champ hadn't been around in 15 years. So to get those guys back here, that was huge parts of this organization. It's been great. And then, starting off the season 2-0, what else more could you really ask for? But I think, Josh Harris, Magic, the rest of them, Rails, they've been out and about in the community. They've been accessible. And that's really all you can ask for, that they're real people and they're in the community talking and having a good time. And it just feels, a little bit more like a family atmosphere from the ownership standpoint. That's no, indictment on Dan. It's just, calling it like it is. They've been a part of the people. Josh Harris has sat in the stands in preseason games, walked around. And so that's exciting when you can really reach out and touch these people.
Yeah, the sitting in the front row thing I thought was actually genuinely hilarious. It's almost like, obviously Josh Harris knows that I'm saying this very tongue-in-cheek, but it's almost like someone forgot to tell him, like, hey, man, this isn't the NBA. You don't sit front row. They got a nice fancy suite up there. Like, that's just how we do things. I've literally never seen an owner do that before. They're always in the box. That was crazy.
Yeah, no, and to be quite frank, those aren't really good seats. You see a lot of back of helmets and things of that nature. But, it speaks to just his awareness of, wanting to be out there, maybe wanting to feel what it's like to sit, in the front row of a football game. And so, who knows what perspective he's trying to get, and it could be something as innocent as, hey, give me front row seats like they do up at the Sixers, or, he generally wanted to get a feel for what the sideline was, what the operation was, so on and so forth. So he's obviously a sports guy. He's done a great job with the other two franchises he owns. So I'm excited, not only for this week, but for what the future looks like. And so it's an exciting time to be a burgundy and gold fan.
One other guy that I want to show a little love to in this that I think you can shed light on far better than I can is Tim Hightower. Tim has been in charge of alumni relations for Washington for a long time at this point. And there was a lot of folks that he laid groundwork with that were like, I'm not doing anything while Dan's there. And that work seems to have already paid off with as we mentioned, 175 alums coming back this weekend. I'm sure you know Tim well. What has he meant to the franchise, and how, the reconnection that has been made so quickly, how much of that is a credit to Tim Hightower?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from an organizational standpoint, they gave Tim the resources and the opportunity to go out there and reach back out. Tim, from the moment he got that job, got on the phone, was reaching out to any and everybody that played here, just trying to reconnect us as a whole. And so, he's done a great job, you know what I mean? And I'm excited to see what him and his staff are going to do in the future. But, you got to take your hats off to the leadership, and the rest of them for giving him the opportunity to be able to reach out to the alumni and get them back in the building.
Kedric Golston with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, Ked, let's talk some ball. And, everyone loved to point out the 3-and-out by Daron Payne to start the second half, if you will, against Denver. But I think you can speak to this at a far higher level, obviously having played in the trenches. And we joked that, I could have been playing safety on those 3 plays and it wouldn't have made a difference. And Daron was so impactful that part is true. But how much of what a guy like Daron is able to do in that sequence is due to the fact that he's playing next to John, he's playing next to Montez, he's playing next to Chase? How do you see those 4 already working together, especially against Denver when Chase was out there for the first time?
Well, I mean, when you game plan for a defensive line, normally you have a featured guy, right? And so you kind of build your protection, you build your run game around, that particular guy, right? And in Washington's case, you have guys that not only have the pedigree and the draft status, but these have been guys that have shown that they can take over games at any given time. You know what I mean? So if you're not running to Payne, you're running to Allen. If you're not running to Sweat, you're running, to Young and whoever else has been in that position over the past, games and last season. So it's really impressive to see, that sequence of plays because he gave you everything you would want out of a D lineman. And that's what I really think is special about this group is, we all kind of tout that fact, right? That's how we determine production and how good a defensive lineman is in the modern day NFL. But these guys are not only elite pass rushers, especially in the interior, but they play the run as good as anybody in the league. And at any given time, they're able to create an explosive play, whether it be a tackle for a loss, a batted ball, a sack. And so they really don't have any weakness in their game. And so to see him just not only, just like you said, he just took over that whole series and nobody else, it didn't really matter what anybody else did. So from a coaching standpoint, you love to have those type of guys in your room. Not only great, football players, but guys that you don't have to worry about off the field and you can genuinely see loves playing the game of football.
The other thing that I think is interesting about that series in particular is they're in that cinco front. They've got 5 down, and I'm curious to get your perspective on that as a guy who played a lot of nose tackle in 3-4 defenses, which are not too far away from what that cinco front winds up looking like. Often, sometimes you got guys in the 3-4 and 2-point stances versus in the cinco. They might have their hand in the dirt. But, and obviously you can split it differently between, 3 techniques, 1 technique, 6 eyes, 4 eyes, all this kind of super technical stuff that matters at a high level. But I'm curious, like when you watch that front, how much does it remind you of the stuff that you would see as a 3-4 nose tackle and especially how offenses try to attack it?
Well, definitely. I mean, the only really difference in the 3-4 from just like a base Okie alignment is instead of it you being a 4-eye inside shoulder of the tackle, you're a 3 technique outside shoulder of the guard. And so, for one, why wouldn't you want to have your best players out there on the field, right? So your defensive line has a ton of depth. They're highly productive. So that, you should have those guys all out there at the same time. But then specifically from a defensive lineman standpoint, you really can't be wrong if you're vertical going up the field. Because if you're a 3 technique in Payne's case, right, and you get on your track and you penetrate up the line, square, violent hands, knocking that guard back, even if you get reached a little bit, you have the 0 technique that can just fold over top of you. You know what I mean? And so if you get scooped, you got another big body there to help you stop and defeat that block. And so it's a great front to play in as a defensive lineman because there's really no true double team angles for the offensive lineman to have, right? So if they double team you, they're leaving a huge gap for the defensive end or the linebacker to run through. So it really frees you up just to, simplify the game and let me just get on my train track, go vertical, violent hand, square, and whatever comes in front of me, I'm going to hit and be disruptive. So, you always want to be in that front as a defensive lineman. It's the 3 techniques with a 2-eye that, you got to play in them, but at the same token, you understand that the offensive line has angles of double team. But in that cinco front or bear front, like a lot of the league calls it, you take away those angles, and it's hard to run against.
Kedric Golston with us, dropping knowledge here on the Hoffman Show. Behind them, you got Cody Barton and Jamin Davis. Jack Del Rio said earlier today he's a lot happier with how those guys performed in week 2, specifically Barton week 1 to week 2. But he's also very pleased with how Jamin Davis has come along. What have you seen from Jamin so far in the last season and then certainly through these first 2 games this year?
I think a guy that just, playing inside linebacker at any level is a hard position, right? Like you have no boundary, you have no side. You're in the middle of the field. You have things coming from both sides. You know what I mean? Run games in the NFL can be a lot more complex than they are at the college game. But what you kind of seen Jamin do is, in him starting to make some plays, is to just stop thinking about everything and just go run and tackle. You know what I mean? Like, the reason we were super excited about you is because your athletic ability, right? So use that while you still got it, and you'll learn and grow into the linebacker that we think you can be. But, and that's what I've seen. I've seen a guy that it feels more comfortable. He understands what the front looks like in front of him. And then ultimately, he's just using his natural gifts to go out there and run and make plays. And as far as Barton is concerned, these guys are going to become more comfortable the more they play together. You know what I mean? And that's really the exciting part about it. And they have the luxury of playing behind one of the best groups in the National Football League. And so I expect them to grow together. The speed's there, the athleticism is there. So there's really any weaknesses except, hey, let's just get these guys more reps. Let's get them more experience. Let's let them feel more comfortable is what we're trying to do from a defensive scheme standpoint.
So, Ked, something that you said there about Jamin and, hey, stop thinking about it, just made me kind of have this vision of a hard knock scene, in my head of, he gets pulled into the linebacker coach's office and they're talking about it and, there's music playing, it's dramatized. And I think that's how a lot of us tend to think about some of these things because we watch a Hard Knocks, we watch some of these others, whether it's like a, Drive to Survive, Formula One on Netflix, and we see kind of the drama and the human side of the ups and downs of a sports season. And when it's, edited creatively and set to music, it feels very dramatic. And, we spend all this time on the radio. I got however many hours I do a week, 15 hours a week of radio that I'm talking about it. But to live it, to be in those emotions of a season, especially, when you're a young guy like a Jamin Davis, what is that like? And then what's it like to be a veteran who's seen a lot of things before and maybe handles it a little bit differently later in your career?
Well, I think, whenever you've been around it long enough too, Craig.
Yeah.
Winning in the National Football League is really fun, right? Everybody feels better, right? The person that, lets you in the building, the cook, the grounds people, the media, it's just a whole totally different vibe when you're winning. And so from a young guy's perspective, when you have success and you've kind of done it, it hadn't really been easy as far as you had to come back in both times in the fourth quarter. You kind of build a trust not only with your teammates but from the coaching staff of what we're doing is actually working. So when you get out there in preparation and in meetings, your antennas are up even more because you want to learn. All these guys want to be great. You know what I mean? This is how they feed their families. It's a childhood dream. And they understand with the success that they're having early on in the season that, these coaches are putting me in position to make plays. Is it perfect all the time? No. But if I can continue to get better, I continue to make plays. And for the veterans that's been around, you just want to keep it going and keep everybody focused on saying, hey, last week was great. We celebrated. Let's put it to bed and let's continue to push forward because at the end of the day, what you did last week really doesn't even matter in this league. And so it's a week-to-week league, game-to-game league. And from a player standpoint, play to play, you know what I mean? And I think, don't chase perfection, chase improvement. And if you continue to prove each and every day, which I think that they're doing, offensively and defensively, I can't wait to see him play Buffalo this week because I think it's going to be a great game and it's going to be exciting to see. And I'll be there because it is alumni weekend.
Yes, no doubt. You and about 174 of your closest friends and, about, 65, 70,000 of whatever the next ring of friendship is for Kedric Golston. He's
Absolutely
with us here on The Hoffman Show. Just a few more quick minutes with Ked. When you watch Sam Howell play, obviously that is the biggest discussion in town. Is he a franchise guy? It's way too early. And maybe even, Ked, you could talk about this from a defensive side. Like, the part of the reason it's too early is because defensive coordinators don't even have tape on this guy yet. So what is it like, playing a guy who's new to you versus a guy that you have film on, and how does that affect how you look at Sam Howell so far?
Well, I was a fan of Sam in college. You talk about a guy who, did it through the air when he had the weapons, and then when it was just kind of him when the coverage were bare down there in Carolina, he put that team on his back. He never complained. He never, you never saw that kind of bewildered look on his face after in post-game press conferences when he was in college. So what you had is you knew a guy that had played football at a high level since he was a freshman there. So from a mental makeup, you like to think, he had what it took. And then so getting book on a young quarterback, everybody's like, well, it's 4 games to see what they can do. I'm not worried about that because of Coach B enemy. You know what I mean? It's his job to anticipate, hey, we're doing this. Defenses are going to counter like this. This is our counterpunch. And so that's not on Sam. That's on the offensive coordinator. That's on his quarterback's coach and the offense to design things to understand, hey, this is a guy that can make all the throws. Arm talent is not one of his issues. Really the only weakness he has right now is experience. You know what I mean? And so the more experience he gets, the more defenses he sees, the better off he can be. But like any team and any, I believe, young quarterback, it's up to the offensive coordinator to put them in position to make those easy plays, to give them easy reads. And that just comes with game planning and understanding offense. And I have not a doubt in my mind that Coach Bieniemy and his staff are going to put Sam in a great position to go out there and continue to be productive even after these first set of 4 games and the next set of 4 games, because you're talking about a guy that's been around great offense and Coach Bieniemy for a long time.
No question. I love that answer, and I think it's so true. All right, last thing for Kedric Golston here. And Kedric, I realize this question is laced with irony considering I'm the one asking it, and I am a fitness professional in the other part of my life away from microphones. But I think I have severely underrated the level of importance that physical fitness plays in football after watching this team play so far this year and knowing how much better or how much in better shape they are after the training camp at the pace that Eric Bieniemy put them in. Do you have experience of that in your career? Like a new coach comes in, does things differently, and based off of how training camp was, you just feel a certain way and are able to perform a certain way going into the season? Because like it's sports. Of course fitness matters, but you just kind of assume at this level like everybody's in peak condition. But after watching what this team has done and thinking about Andy Reid's success, maybe I underestimated it. What role does it play, and how do you think it's helping this team if you agree that it is?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, physical fitness, the tempo in which you practice, right? So we both know this, right? Practice has a certain intensity, right? And then the game is even amped up even more. And then we all talk about, like, playoff football. It's even amped up even more, right? So good coaches and great training camps, you want to artificially create that intensity to make it, and we all talk about we need to go game speed, but it's up to the coaches to force and push that issue because the players know it's not a game. You know what I mean? And so when you can practice at that tempo and demand that type of effort, like especially now with all the monitors and stuff that they got hooked up to them, they know when a guy's running full speed. They know when he's, playing fast and when he's not. And so you get into games and now you're comfortable playing at that speed. And not only are you comfortable playing at that speed, you can do it longer because you've done it in 2.5-hour practices. You know what I mean? And so you've had to dig deep. And there's one thing that we know, and it doesn't matter if it's professional football, pickleball, or anything. When you get tired, things kind of really, seem to matter a little less, right? You lose focus. You get injured. But the better in shape you are, the harder you've pushed yourself in training camp and in practice, when you get in those moments late in the game or you're on a 12-play drive that you can push because you've done it and your body's prepared for it, and mentally it doesn't faze you because you're not tired, because you've put yourself in this situation throughout the week to be conditioned both mentally and physically for it. So it should go without saying, but I think we are seeing the benefits of Coach Bieniemy's tempo in training camp and the rewards that now they're 2-0.
Yeah, I've always just thought of it so much from the mental side and the preparation. And it's like, oh, I've seen that, or you get to run a certain number of plays, so like you get more mental reps. And it just, for whatever reason, just incredible blind spot for me, the literal physical part of it. By the way, are you playing pickleball these days, or was that a very random call out for you?
It's kind of random, but it is something that I want to get to. I used to be a huge racquetball player, right? And so, but I think now, in the age that I'm at now, maybe pickleball might be more my speed because I don't have to worry about balls bouncing off a couple walls coming back at me. But if anybody wants to teach me or go out and play, hey, I'm down.
Okay, I mean, I got a pickleball racket. I played once, but I used to play tennis a lot, and I've gotten back into that recently. But I think, Anthony, I think we should set this up. I think me, you, and Ked should go play some pickleball. Anthony, have you ever touched a pickleball racket?
Yes, I picked up one the other day.
Okay, so Anthony's fresh on pickleball. Ked's willing to try. I've played once, which somehow makes me the veteran in the group. Ked, we'll get this organized.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right. I'll see you, man. Thanks. That's Kedric Golston, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. 11-year NFL veteran and pending pickleball enthusiast.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.